All right, just do a little test for sound.
Dr. Powers, how was freshman welcome day tonight? I think you're muted. I'm sorry.
I've had too many face-to-face meetings lately that I forget about mute buttons. No, we have a nice turnout tonight. We had a good group last night. Looking forward to meeting the rest of these folks. I'll be on with you until about 20 after or so. Then I'll rejoin as quickly as I can after that.
I see that Mr. Burney just joined. I just wanted to give you a shout out. I watched the budget meeting from Monday and found that incredibly informative in preparing for tonight's meeting. And I just wanted to thank you for the way you have organized all this and prepared all this. And it really makes me very much more confident and comfortable with what I'm seeing. Thank you so much.
I certainly appreciate it, and good evening, everyone. Thank you so much. That's a great compliment. I'm trying my best to do a great job, and I want to work together and make it a win-win for everyone, especially our kids. But thank you. I appreciate that, and thank you, Miss Ma.
You're welcome. It's a little loud in here during our transition period, so I'm ready whenever we think we have enough people. I can start.
I think we are good for quorum. We need to have 8. And then when we actually vote on the budget, we're going to need 8 non-student members present. Okay, I will call us to order then. Is the stream good then, Sarah? Okay, so I'll call our special meeting of the Jones Local School Council to order at 6:02.
Okay, I'll take a roll call. I'm just going to call everyone. If you see people join later, please let me know. So it's 6:02. Andrade.
Present.
Bowman. Is she coming tonight? Do we know?
Yes, I think she can.
Okay, so just all right. Serna Prado. Okay, not
Violet
here.
is a no.
Okay, Clancy.
Present.
Cresswell.
Here.
Troy. I think he's gonna come join us later. So just Kerr.
Here.
Land.
Here.
Mana Hoppenworth.
Here.
Ma here. Martin Sek.
Here.
Menjivar. I saw his face. He's here. He just has to unmute. Zen.
Hi, Sarah. I'm present.
I see you. Rachel.
I'm here.
Okay.
I'm here too.
Oh my gosh. I'm so sorry. You're there. Thank you. I see. All right. So we have a lot of people here. It's great. I make a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll second.
It's Deborah seconding. I'll do a roll call. Let me just write this down. Andrade.
Yay.
Sir, Clancy.
Yay.
Cresswell.
Yes.
Kerr.
Yes.
Land.
Yes.
Mana Hoppenworth.
Yes.
Ma, yes. Martin Sek.
Yes.
Menjivar.
Yes.
Powers.
Yes.
Zen.
Yes.
Okay. Looks like that's approved. I have no minutes. It's not on the agenda anyway.
So I specified budget related public participation, but we have like, I think only 3 speakers, but none of them are here. Are any of them asking to come in, Ellen? No? Okay. I think we can just put them all at the end then. One of the topics was why a special meeting. So I'll just answer that on the chance that they are watching. We have a special meeting. The budget needs to be approved by basically the end of April 18th. And so last year, I think we actually had like 3 meetings on the budget. So we wanted to fit in 2 if at all possible. And that cannot wait till April 19th for our regular meeting. So we have tonight scheduled. We also have Monday scheduled if we need it. And yes, okay. So we can, we have another public participation item at the end. Cover stuff then. Here's Kim, Sarah. And we could do approvals now before we do the budget and get them done with. Let's do that. So do you want to do those, Sarah?
Sure, this can be really quick if everyone, there was 4 different proposals that I sent over. One for a digital piano for the orchestra, a dance residency, the computers and the monitors for security, and then prom decorations, deposit for the prom decorations. Is there any questions about any of those? Got a little orchestra in the background here. Okay, so I'm going to make a motion. I'm just going to read out the amounts. I make a motion to approve the following requisitions: $3,869.37 for the orchestra keyboard, $3,500 for the dance residency, $3,130 for the computer and security monitors, and $2,800 for this senior prom decorations deposits. Do I have a second?
Second.
It's Zen, and I'll do a roll call. Andrade,
Yay.
Bowman,
Yay.
Clancy,
Yay.
Cresswell,
Yes.
Kroer,
Yay.
Land,
Yes.
Mana Hoppenworth,
Yes.
Ma, yes, Martinsek,
Yes.
Menjivar,
Yes.
Powers,
Yes.
Zen.
Yep.
Okay, those are approved. Thank you.
Okay, and so then the main item tonight is the budget. Sarah will basically can lead that discussion, and yes, and cover the fact that, you know, like this is not necessarily an approval, or we're not going to talk about all the money that we will expend in the year. But I think her slides cover that pretty well. So I'll hand it over. Roberto?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I may have, sorry for joining late, and maybe this was already covered, but it looks like we have a couple guests in our Google Meet. So I just wanted to invite them to identify themselves or share out. I see a William Rice, and then I'm not sure if he's with the school.
Is that correct? So William, Shivani, and Miss Williams-Ford are all from LSC Relations?
Yes, that's
Okay.
correct.
Okay, welcome, William, welcome, Shivani, welcome.
Thank you.
Ms. Ford.
Thank you.
Thanks, Roberto. Okay.
Okay, so in between violin playing, I will present the budget. Rachel, if you can keep an eye on the YouTube chat, since I won't be able to do that. But for a lot of you, this might be not your first budget, and for some, it is your first budget. So if you already know all of this stuff, you can just kind of take a little refresher, or I just wanted to go through what we're going to talk about tonight. we are specifically looking to approve the allocation of the district funds. Those were all described in the school budget handout. And we'll talk about enrollment and how enrollment impacts that number. And we'll review the Jones budget status report that Mr. Burney put together. We'll touch briefly on internal accounts. And set a timeline. But just so you know, we're not going to be going into any detail with internal accounts this evening. So there's just some terminology sorry, I'm getting, oh, that's okay. Ellen's like, I could share the slides for you. That's okay. I don't mind sharing. I'm reading them anyway. So there's some terminology that I think it's important to just have in our minds. So there's foundation positions, and each school receives 3 of these: principal, counselor, and a clerk. What is SBB? It's student-based budgeting. It's a dollar amount per pupil. And CPS funds must be used during the fiscal year and do not roll over. And these are some of the numbers you'll see. 115 are SBB funds. We have some diverse learner non-discretionary funds that have to be used for those purposes. Security guards is a 210 fund, and lunchroom workers is a 312. Internal accounts are 124 funds. School has autonomy over these funds, and the funds do roll over. And just some other acronyms that we might use: OST, out of school time funds. In last year, we received $150,000. Moving forward together funds, or MFT funds, last year we actually received $249,250. I have a little error there. SRO funds are funds that we received $130,000 per year. We did get that this year, actually. The 10th day, these are kind of terminology that we need to know. The 10th day and the 20th day. The 10th day is the SBB fund is adjusted based on the actual enrollment on the 10th day. So for example, if after the 10th day, if your enrollment goes up by more than 10 students, let's say it goes up by 11 students, then you will get that additional money. If it goes up by 8, you will get no additional money. And CPS checks your numbers. It says like by the end of October. Now that we're starting 2 weeks earlier, maybe that will be moved up. And the 20th day is our supplemental aid is adjusted based on the number of students that qualify for free and reduced lunch on the 20th day. If we say hold harmless, that means CPS does not ask for the money back. That means if they give us 19 funds for 1960 students, if we get 1959, we don't have to give back SBB money for 1 student. Selective enrollment high school students like Jones receive 3 high school program positions. Those will be listed as 80-10. And then you'll see some numbers like LRE1, least restricted environment. And this has to do with our diverse learners. So diverse learners are getting the non-discretionary funds already, but they'll also get, depending on their least restrictive environment, they'll get a certain percent of the SBB funds. That if that's confusing, we can talk about that when we get into that more. So we got in a handout. It's linked here from CPS, and our funding is based on an enrollment of 1960 students. They gave us 3 additional core instructional positions and a 0.5 bilingual position. Our supplemental aid increased by about $35,000. Our special education allocation was unchanged. We still have 18 non-cluster positions. And there was a 3.5 increase in SBB funds. What the budget did not include is there's no MFT funds, which we knew was likely. No OST funds. There was some rumor that this would be extended for a second year. We did not receive those at this time. And there's no salary adjustment line item, which was unusual, but possibly this was covered by the SBB increase. CPS is also committing to a 1-to-1 tech for students. We don't have a lot of details about what that includes, if that includes maintenance or what their replacement schedule is. There is a possibility of an additional position for a full-time athletic director, and Dr. Powers can talk more about that. And there's possibly additional funding for summer programs. I don't know, Dr. Pars, if you wanted to talk about any of this before we move on.
Just real quickly, yeah, there are a couple of those things that are still hanging fire, so to speak. The OST, yes, we didn't get it as part of our rollout of the summary. However, we're being invited to training and everything during the summer for managing OST, which kind of leads me to think that there's money coming to follow. But again, we don't know that for certain yet. The one-to-one tech is a big game changer for us. It's going to help a great deal. And again, the exact implementation of that remains to be seen. The athletic director position, this is still something that CPS and Sports Authority or Sports Administration are working on in terms of just exactly how that's handled. But we've been told if you have 300 or more student athletes on a regular basis, then you can get a full-time athletic director, which is what we're counting on. The summer programming, we've seen portions of it that don't really apply to Jones, but there are other portions we're going to investigate to see if there are ways in which we can benefit from those.
Thank you. That was, that's my next slide. Oh, so these three additional core instructional positions are awesome. I just want to point that out. And we got that halftime bilingual position or 0.5. And so how it was, we just moved some of our regular teachers into those positions, a foreign language teacher, social studies, and library service, and then the halftime bilingual instructor. And then this allowed Mr. Burney to move the orchestra position. So for example, in fiscal year 2022, out of internal accounts, so out of funds that we collected for fees and historically for rental income, we were paying for a operations manager, an assistant principal, and a halftime orchestra teacher. We were able to move 1.5, so the assistant principal and orchestra, to 115 funds, which means we only have one remaining position that we're paying out of internal accounts. Are there any questions about that? William.
Is there a particular benefit to paying them out of internal accounts as opposed to the alternative version?
It's the exact opposite. Like we definitely would prefer to pay no positions out of internal accounts.
Got it. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, that's a great question. Ellen.
And this is more about the previous slide. I noticed that we did not get an additional IES teacher. And I was wondering, I know last year we petitioned in order to get one. Are we planning to do that again this year as well? It looks like Dr. Powers has his hand up.
Would you like me to respond at this time? Okay. Internally, Roberto, it's basically the special education program, the ODLSS programming. That all comes from a separate, we have no discretion over it, no discretional use over it. It's actually specific positions. Nothing was changed until we actually have confirmation of what our enrollment is going to look like. And that also includes not only the number of kids, but the services that they need. You know, one student may have a whole different set of service needs than another. So in the fall, probably starting as early as August, when our numbers solidify completely, we should be able to, if necessary, file an appeal and get additional staffing, either at the teacher level or at the SICA, the classroom level as well.
Roberto?
Yes, I have several questions, but along the IES, is this the situation where we had last year during the budget where there was an opening, I think, in the cluster program, and we moved a regular teacher, or we closed a position in the regular teacher position, and then opened up that position in the cluster program? Is that what we're referring to when we talk about IES?
Yeah, IES is just Jones shorthand for individual educational services. I don't think anybody else that uses the acronym anymore that I'm aware of. But anyway, what happened, Roberto, and again, you're correct. We had a vacancy in the area of a special education cluster program, and we had a highly qualified and experienced English teacher who was at the same time a special educator. So we moved him over to that stage because we were able to reduce an English position and not fill a vacancy, and that worked out okay. Now that person is back into the resource program of special education.
Thank you. That's helpful. And then just since we're on this page on addition of core instructional positions, these are, so my understanding is that these 3.5 positions were they being paid through the internal accounts?
No.
Or, okay, so we got these 3.5 positions, but then we closed some positions to fill these positions, or I guess I'm trying to get some clarity on that.
I'll try to explain it. Basically what it is, first of all, dealing with the 0.5 bilingual, that's an existing position. It was only during the fiscal year 22 that CPS had the schools pay for that. It returned to CPS providing the payment for that. So that's no change whatever, other than a 0.5 we don't have to pay for from our 115 funds. On the other three positions, those are ways, essentially, for some schools, they're going to use them for a lot of different things that they don't currently have. For us, we're using it to essentially pay for 3 teachers. That frees up 115 funds from our regular allocation to be able to cover everything else. So in other words, this is a way in which we have to have CPS picking up the cost of 3 of our existing positions. Now their positions will change in the sense of a number will change, but not their actually duties or descriptions or anything like that.
Got it. And then the orchestra and the assistant principal positions, are we, like, these 3.5 positions are not going to be filled in, or not going to be filled by these 1.5 positions that were being paid through internal accounts?
No, that's
okay.
Correct.
Great. And then that frees up money for the internal accounts for the school to use at its disposal. You know, it has a little more flexibility on how to use those funds. At least that's how I understand it. And then going back to a slide with the athletic director, one full FTE for the athletic director. How is that being? Because we have a new athletic director now that I believe does dual duties, right? That individual is a physical education instructor and also fulfills the athletic director position. Are we anticipating we're going to have 2 separate people? Or okay, so could you explain how that would work?
We will, once they have this all settled out, because we were funding that ourselves except for a stipend that the athletic director received. For a long time, we've had an athletic director who also taught 2 or sometimes 3 classes, but typically 2 classes. With this new change, we're able to have, once this all shakes out, we know the details, we'll have a full-time athletic director, which we certainly have needed for a long time. We just didn't have the means to pay for it. This way that will be paid for and will not have physical education teaching duties, at least as far as we know at this particular point. And that we had a meeting, I was not invited to that one, but the ADs and so forth, the people from sports administration met yesterday with a whole lot of unanswered questions, I guess you might say. So these things are coming down kind of right in the middle of the budget process, but some of these things aren't going to be resolved in totality until after we've already voted on our primary budget.
Understood. That's helpful. And then I guess, would it be safe to presume that if we do get this full-time athletic director, that those duties or responsibilities would expand beyond what they are now?
Probably not, because what we've had in the past, or what we've had up to this year, including right now, is duties far beyond a quote part-time athletic director. In other words, it's really been a stretch to cover the needs. When Jones had 700 kids, we had the same athletic director arrangement as when we had over 1,900 kids. So that the responsibilities have outgrown the part-time position, and this will recognize that, and being a person being able to devote their time exclusively to athletic related issues.
Yep, and that's a fair point, and that's a better way of framing it, that they would be dedicated to that role. So thank you.
Correct. I'm going to have to excuse myself, and I will be back. Are there any other quick questions specifically for me?
Can you just remind me when you're coming back?
Yeah, probably about 6:45.
Okay, thank
Like
you.
that.
Just so
I'll be as quick as I can.
Okay, good luck.
Thank you.
Ellen?
I can hold my question. It was probably Dr. Parr's question.
I was like, yeah, keep all the questions. Because I think like, and also Mr. Bernie is here. So I'm not sure if you can get to his phone, but he's here to answer questions
Yes,
too.
I am here. I can answer.
Yeah. So like, I don't know, Ellen, is that a power? Could he answer
I
that?
can try. I have no idea. My question's because Roberta had been asking about the athletic director, and so since that individual is transitioning out of the classroom, I guess one question I had is like, do we anticipate a need to hire within the PE department because there are a few classes that will not have coverage, or I'm not sure if we know that at this time.
From my understanding, if we are granted the funded full-time athletic director, our current athletic director would go into that role and would no longer, as Dr. Powers mentioned, be a teacher. We would then have to backfill that position that he would be vacating with a new an additional employee to make sure there's no loss in classroom coverage for that position. So we wouldn't be getting that money back or anything like that. There's no gain. We would just be bringing on an additional person to replace him.
Okay. Okay. So yeah. So I summarized it there. I shared the spreadsheet. It's in the folder for all of the public, but unfortunately, in a read-only format, you can't break open the groupings I've made. I will try to ungroup all those in the final like PDF that I share. But this, I did this a lot for me, is so that I could see, what positions we had, is kind of like a tally. Okay, so sorry. The ones listed on this page that you're looking at are the centrally funded positions, foundation positions, selective enrollment positions, and those are the ones that are in the budget handout. They pay for security officers or special education teachers and classroom assistants, case manager. The ones that, we're always, and I summarized it here, but you can pull it apart in the spreadsheet. But these are what considered discretionary positions. And so if we look at like the English teacher, it says 13.5, but we actually have 14.5 English teachers. We have one position that's funded through 80-10 funds. So that's what that means. Like the foreign and world language, we actually have an 11.5. We have one that's funded through 80-10 and one through the 0103. The 0103 is that core instructional position that they added. So if you did the math, you should have 3 0103 positions and 3 80-10 positions. So this is just summarizing. I'm not, in each department. I don't think that there's any changes. Maybe Mr. Bernie or Ellen or Kim could say like, oh, it looks like we're short something. But this is how I summarized it. Does anyone have any comments on this? Or does this look pretty accurate to what's going on? I would add this, that in our budget meeting, Dr. Powers did mention that depending on what classes people sign up for, that some of the positions might be made, additional 0.2 position, and which means that you will be teaching an extra class. Ellen, could you kind of walk us through what that means for everyone on the call?
I can try. Actually, Kim had one last year, so she's probably a better person.
Kim.
Not to put you on the spot.
Yeah, and now I'm home, so I can do this safely. So a 0.2 position, a teacher is paid to teach 5 classes. So they end up with 2 preps throughout the day. And so they teach 5 classes and they're salaried for 5 classes. So if you teach an additional class, what happens is that you're paid like 120% of your yearly salary. So that 0.2 is just that extra percentage of like, if you have 5 classes, then 1 out of 5 is 0.2. So we have an extra 0.2 of a class, like of our day added to it. And then it's just like a bump on the, we get paid 1.2% or 120%.
Right.
If that makes sense.
That makes sense.
So.
And then, and that's something we're not sure what that is, if it would be 2 or 3 sections that would be added. So I think that will depend on who signs up for what, and then let's move on. Let's talk a little bit about this, the enrollment. Okay, so the budget that we're working off of tonight is based off of 1,960 students. So that's the SBB money that we got. CPS reached out and said that they could offer us 10 additional seats, and that we would get that money. So it's 10 times whatever the SBB amount was, which I don't have that right in front of me. And if we didn't meet the 1970, we would be held, we would not be held harmless. We would have to return that money. I don't believe we have to return money if we are below 1960. Mr. Burney can clarify. But if we accept those 10 seats, we are saying that, if we don't make it, we'll give the money back. And at the budget committee meeting, it was discussed that we should take that money. We should take it now so that we have it for planning. If we end up not getting that, we'll give it back. But if we do need it for, for example, for those 0.2 positions, we'll have it right there. We don't have to wait until mid-October to get it. I don't know who that is, so I'm going to let Ellen do that. There was something else that we talked about in the budget meeting that I think is interesting, is that more offers are offered than actually will show up. And so Dr. Power's target goal is 500 freshmen. He wants to replace 500, the 500 seniors that are graduating with 500 freshmen approximately. And so there's 75 in the CTE program and, and 23 in for principal discretion. And then the originals letters that went out only offered, I think, 405 seats. So CPS had a clerical error where they didn't offer the maximum number of seats that they could. So I think that they have offered more seats. So if that makes any sense, you kind of target over, like you kind of shoot over 500, and then when people finally decide where they want to go, you're looking for about 500 students. Mr. Burney, do you have information on if we were to be below 1960, what would happen?
No, you are absolutely right. So we will not be, responsible for paying anything back below what CPS has projected us at the 1960. So you were spot on.
Okay. And so Cassie and Dr. Powers received an email that said, do you want these 10 seats? Please confirm via email. And Cassie had reached out and said she'd feel more comfortable if the LSC had voted on that. So I think that's something that we want to vote on, that yes, we want to accept the 10 seats. It was Mr. Burney and Dr. Powers and my recommendation that we accept the money. Mr. Burney will put it aside. And then if we need it for those 0.2 positions, we'll use it. If we don't, then we'll return it. And so we can take a vote on that either as part of the whole budget or as a separate motion later. Let me find my slides. Okay, this is real exciting. So if you open, there's a PDF that Mr. Burney put together, and it's called FY23 school budget. No, that's not it. It's called Jones Budget Status Report. And at the very bottom, you'll see these line items. And I summarized them in a slide because it's a little difficult to share in this format. But we added, so 115 funds are SBB funds or CPS funds, right? And we filled the positions that we could, but we have some money that we can, it might not be enough for a whole position. And so, for example, one of these buckets, there's two buckets, ESP extended day for after school programs, 20,290, and then 26,000. This is the new bucket, teacher extended day. This is for homework assistance. So this is, and correct me if I'm wrong, this is overtime pay to pay for security for our after school programs or for tutoring after school by teachers. Is that correct, Mr. Burney?
You are correct.
Okay, thank you. And then we have non-personnel expenses. We have $62,000 left. CPS automatically takes the managed print service money out. So that 11,000 is already it's already earmarked. So then we had, some monies left over. 4,000 for commodities and supplies. Oh, geez. Sorry. 5,000 for transportation for busing. And then our current budget, fiscal year 22, had $10,000 for professional development. We moved that out of our internal 124 funds and are funding it with the SBB, the 115 funds. And then, if you remember, I said we got $130,000 from the SRO money. 130 minus 31 is the total amount that covers covers Pablo's, our climate and culture position, salary plus benefits, and this is the balance that it's just earmarking to be potentially used for camera replacement or other security measures. If you remember, during the whole school safety plan, it was mentioned that we couldn't buy things, with this money. But Mr. Burney has gotten permission from JD Chow that if it meets the requirements that she set forth. Yeah, go ahead, Mr. Burney.
No, go ahead and finish. I just wanted to, you were absolutely right everywhere. I just wanted to point out that the extended day buckets for both support personnel and teachers, that was something that has also been paid traditionally out of 124 funds. So again, we've made the effort to utilize our budgeted funds and retain our checking account, internal account funds, which we have more autonomy with. Just wanted to bring that to everyone's attention.
No, thanks. I don't think I realized that. I didn't put that on, that it was used to be 124. So that you're saying is the teacher extended day used
Correct.
to be.
Both extended day. Many of our extended day buckets have been funded from our 124 funds. And I'm trying to get us away from that because of the uncertainty of a lot of 124 funding in our income period. And again, we won't turn this into the 124 meeting, but at the end of the day, we thought this would be a better move to limit our liability and use of 124 funding.
Yes, yeah. And what Mr. Burney's alluding to is the fact that we haven't really had any rental income for 2 years. And so 124 funds were really bolstered by our rental income, which could have ranged from $250,000 to $500,000 a year. And maybe we'll get that next year. But we don't have it this year. So this is why we're kind of planning that we might not have it. Question, Roberto.
So I want to, my understanding is also all student fees go to the 124 internal accounts. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Correct. Yeah. Kim?
I just have a couple questions. Sorry, I'm trying to get my brain together. So is this based off like the 1970 numbers or the 1960? So like if
1960.
Okay, so even if we go for 1970, didn't get like this, we're not using this money to pay back CPS for the students that we don't get?
Correct.
Or is this like the cushion? No.
No,
And then my second question was just regarding if the loss of OST, is that 26,000 supposed to be like the supplemented OST? Because right now we have all those after school tutoring programs. Is the idea that this would then cover that in case we don't have it? And I was just curious if in the future we could get like how much of that OST money did we actually use? And is this comparable to what because I'd hate to lose some of those programs that we've been able to offer. And if 26 isn't, that's like probably a 124 conversation. I don't know if I'm making any kind of sense, but that's kind of my question.
Yeah, I mean, in my experience, and Mr. Burney might have a different one, that you don't usually find out what those 124 funds are until school starts. And then they're like, hey, here's your money. And you're like, scramble to put it together. It sounds like if Dr. Pars has been invited to training, that's a really good sign. And they did say that we would probably have this for more than 1 year. Mr. Burney, do you have any insider info?
No insider info. And unfortunately, I don't know a lot of the prior history regarding after school programming. However, those OST funds have been instrumental, as you mentioned, Ms. Bowman, in maintaining some of the programming, and especially some of the payment for programming. And I'm not certain, you know, at my old school, it was a volunteer. Like if you were a part of a club or a club leader, you didn't get paid for it. This is a unique situation where you're actually, you can get paid for it. So to answer your question, Ms. Bowman, that is not going to be an even switch right now. There was tons more of OST funding, not only for personnel, but also for materials for those after school programs, just full support. So it is definitely a program that we will miss, but you know, we will make it happen. And we'll supplement it somewhere because it's very helpful. But no, it is not an even swap. The 26,000, that is not an even swap. And honestly, the 26,000 is going more. That's more at the instructional rate, Ms. Bowman. So you know, for strictly for, you know, for the most part for tutoring, making sure that our kids are outfitted for tutoring and their academics more so than the club and you know, extracurricular, because that would be at the non-instructional rate.
Ellen?
I just wanted to echo what Kim had asked about as well. I'm not sure if we have the numbers like ready to hand about like what chunk of the OST we've used so far this year. So definitely not like an even exchange, right? Going from like 150,000 to 26,000 is very different. But as you mentioned, Mr. Burney, like whether it's like OST has also included supplies. So I'm just curious about the data. Definitely don't expect it to be like right at the fingertips, but agree with Kim that I'm wondering how much of that we've used so far. And I'm also a little curious about how much of that has been for physical consumable supplies as opposed to like staffing, like paying those rates.
Yeah, that's easy information to extract. Unfortunately, I wasn't prepared for this meeting for that, but I'm more than happy to share out whether it's individually or at our next meeting.
Yeah, and I mean, I have the March 4th, but it would be nice to see, you know, it reconciled up to the end of March. And I can share that with you. I can put it in the chat. I mean, it just shows you like what. Okay, Roberto?
Yeah, just along those lines with the OST, I think we paid the SAT prep through academic approach through OST. Is that right? Or was that
No.
moving forward together?
MFT.
Okay, MFT. So, you know, the MFT, I think we spent about over $100,000 for the SAT prep. And from the students that I've talked to and their parents is that, you know, that was incredibly beneficial for the junior class. So that is something that I'm going to be looking for, that the school support for at least the sophomore rising juniors. But going to this, I just have a question regarding the $31,865 of the whole school safety plan. So I was talking to Mr. Mitchell a couple of weeks ago, and he brought this up that he would like to use the remaining funds of that to purchase new cameras for certain areas of the campus. And I think that was correct. To your point, Sarah, we did have that discussion about putting in some additional security cameras in areas that where there was just blind spots or areas where there weren't any. So I think that's I agree with Mr. Mitchell, and I agree using those funds. But I guess my question is, part of those funds were also to hire an additional security guard. And so I'm wondering whether we have hired someone, and how is that position funded?
So I can answer how it's funded. I'm not sure if they had gotten the candidates from CPS, but those are funded through 210 funds. And if you look, the 210 funds are centrally funded, and we have 10 security guards. So that includes the additional one. So we didn't, don't tell anyone. No, I'm just kidding. We didn't have to pay that additional security guard out of the 130. It just CPS gave us that. And so then we have this balance. We were able to hire Pablo and then have a balance. I don't know if anyone in the school knows if we hired the 10th security guard.
I know they were actively interviewing, but I don't think the person has been hired yet.
Okay, and then the 130, that's funds, right? CPS had committed that the $130,000 for the SRO was going to be on a continuous basis, or indefinitely until they change their mind.
Correct. Yeah. Okay. Any other questions? Let's see what we got. I think we only have one more slide. Nope. Oh, yay. Okay. So it's funny, the 115 funds, that is all the money, right? It's like $17 million, that including the money that we get from CPS centrally funded. And then we have internal accounts, which is a much smaller amount, less than $1 million. So, but this is the one that we're really going to want to talk about. So Roberto sent a bunch of questions that Mr. Bernie and I will meet and comb through, and mostly those are with respect to how fees have been collected and distributed through the year. But what we need from the people on the call here and from maybe other stakeholders is what textbooks do we need? So maybe PPLC can help out with this. What software? So we have the list of software from last year. Is it the same? Do we need different things? And then if there's any changes in the special projects that are listed, and I can summarize all this in an email too, so you can see what those are. And then my big one that I love is, do we have any facility needs? That would be a Dr. Powers question. And then I know that we left the equity committee kind of a big project to talk about sports and sports funding. Maybe that's not something we can answer as part of 124 funds now, especially since we don't know if we're getting this additional full-time athletic director position. So it just, I think that Mr. Bernie and I could probably meet next week before spring break if he is here, and then put something together for everyone at in May, for approval. I don't know if what you had in mind, Mr. Bernie.
No, exactly, and that's sort of what we discussed in our, finance meeting on Monday. Basically, making sure that all the stakeholders were involved with their needs, and we would really approach this a little differently, in the sense of dealing with real budget, real numbers that we have, and then instead of anticipated funds that are not necessarily guaranteed. And especially when you talk about student fees, those are not, they don't come in regularly and frequently. We get most schools get the big push in the summer, the very beginning of the year, for school fees. And then it's not again until the spring, when it gets towards the end of the year, graduations, proms, and everyone has to pay stuff. But holidays, you can forget about getting a rush of money during the November, December, January time. So that being said, it would be, and we'll get together, Ms. Ma, and present you guys with what we think would be the best way. But we want to involve everyone, and making sure that we have wish lists and needs, and redirect funds if needed.
Kim?
I was just going to add that today I sent out an email to staff, and so PPLC is starting to garner textbook requests and like supply requests and things like that. So we should be able to provide something about what textbooks departments are wanting. And then just what we would need clarification for is like what kind of purchases will come out of department funds versus what kind of purchases would be like a school-wide purchase, so that we have really clear procedures and can disseminate that information to our staff as well, so that they're like, well, why did that get paid for? And I have to use my department funds for this. I want to make sure it's clear as we're collecting these like wish lists, if you will.
Yeah, and I just want to interject, since Mr. Bernie is newer. That was a big part of our discussion last year, was what do departments cover and what does the school cover? And so I don't even think it ended up being very clear even at the end. So I think that's something that we could work on and with PPLC with Kim and yeah. Deborah?
In advance of the meeting this evening, there was an email from the Fine Arts Department inquiring about department chairs and proposing 2 co-chairs. And what's not clear to me, because I never had the chance to ask anyone the question, how do we compensate our chairs or co-chairs differently than their peer teachers? And where does that turn up in the budget? Because I hadn't seen any discussion of that. And when there's a request, I don't know how it gets funded.
Ellen?
Kim and I probably are going to say the same things. So department chairs at Jones have a period that is dedicated towards department chair duties. So for instance, once a week, they have either a department chair meeting or an ILT meeting, the instructional leadership team. And then during the other 1 or 2 times that week that period comes up, they're working on other things, for example, scheduling, budgeting, planning, department meeting, professional development, things like that. So it's not additional compensation, it's a release period associated with the role of department chair.
Kim?
And I'll just add that that's not, so usually department chairs will get 4 classes and then the release period, right? But sometimes in cases there just needs staffing. And so department chairs have been asked to teach a full 5 classes and still do department chair duties. And I don't think that there is, I might be wrong, but I don't think there's like extra, it's not like they get a 0.2 for doing that. They're just asked to give up that prep. And that's been an equity issue in the past. I'm a department co-chair, but I teach 5 classes and I'm honestly okay with that because my role is a little bit different than what Justin does. So it kind of depends on how the department wants to define the roles too. Again, something we would probably want clear things about.
Yeah, Kim, can you explain like when that decision happens that you would be a chair and then your period gets taken away? Is that something that happens after the schedule's made?
It's usually based on class needs. So I know it's happened, I think Ellen might know too. I think it was computer science / engineering, that department. There just was too many sections and there was too many kids and not enough to like free up one section for that teacher. So that teacher taught 5 classes. But I can follow up with them to see if they were compensated in a different way.
Yeah, they weren't made a 0.2.
No, I don't think so.
They were not. Okay. And then I saw another hand. Did it go away? Roberto.
Yeah, so along those similar related lines, so I think so Sarah and I received an email from one of the sports team who's also a teacher at Jones regarding student fees, athletic fees, and how they're allocated and distributed. Because according to this coach teacher, the athletic fees increased a couple of years ago. It increased. The former LSC approved to increase the fees for the varsity and JV teams, and that is all going to at least one bucket. And that, my understanding is, when this coach approached the administration and asked how those funds are used or allocated, it was primarily used for transportation. But that specific team did not get a bus to take their students, student athletes, to some of the competitions. So then when they do ask for uniforms, they're told that those funds aren't necessarily allocated for uniforms. So those teams have to go ahead and fundraise. So I just want to make sure that I want every sports team and athletics at Jones to understand the process and what those funds are being used for, what the student athletic fees are being used for, how they're being distributed, how teams can request funds from the school in order to support their sport.
Noted. I think we'll try to do as much as we can with the data that we have from this year. And obviously, bring in the appropriate stakeholders to help shed light on that. We got an email about a second department chair for the arts, and more importantly, a dedicated space for those drama class. I believe it was the drama classes. So if they get removed from the auditorium, they don't really have a space large enough for them. And the room that they're assigned to 222 is more of a storage area from what the email said. Additionally, we had an email about, and I think this is really important, from Ms. LaLogin about tech and her ancient computers and how it has caused, yeah, give me 1 second, I'll finish. Kind of caused the program maybe to not be as competitive. And since I think this will be a very natural discussion, which is that we use the tech money that we got from our tech fee and use that to bring Jones in the 21st century for our tech. Dr. Powers?
Yeah, I just want to say that, especially with regard to the second item here, with regard to the technology for the computer science classes, that's something we're already working on, and we'll be utilizing, especially now that CPS, it appears, in however they're going to handle it, the one-to-one computing is being handled outside and being handled centrally. That will potentially free up resources for us to move ahead with some of the changes that we need in the computer science labs. So that's underway. With regard to the space issues, we have space issues. There's just no question about it. We don't have spare classrooms. We don't have large spaces other than the 2 auditoriums, one of which is being used for theater classes and the other is being used for orchestra classes because our instrumental music outgrew our music room. So these are all things that we can work through to the best of our ability. More importantly than the space itself is to make sure that we are on top of and have the funds for the maintenance and the other factors that are going to help make our facility continue to work well over time. And then thirdly, there's a matter of hiring someone to serve as like a theater manager, somebody who's in charge of that space. Again, you can do a lot of things with money if you have the money. And in a previous school I was at, I did have a part-time auditorium manager who handled, things of that sort. At this particular point, up to this point, we have not yet had the kind of resources we need to do something like that. But that's all on the table as a possibility.
Yes, thank you. I also think that with being able to move, if for example we are able to get rental income again, and since we are able to move an assistant principal and the halftime orchestra teacher to 115 funds, that will free up some money that in internal accounts. It's not money we have yet, but I think that it could be money that can happen if we are able to recoup some rental income losses. I had I had one thing that I wanted to ask you, Dr. Powers. With our balance of MFT funds, are you thinking that we're going to use those to purchase tech? Are we able to do that or no? You're muted.
I don't think so at this time, but again, we have to look at any funds that we have available to us at this particular point. And like I said, we're developing a plan now that we're not going to have to purchase large numbers of Chromebooks. That's going to give us greater capability of handling the computer labs themselves, which do need replacing or upgrading depending on which ones were purchased when.
Ellen?
Yeah, so I saw the email from Ms. LaLogin that you mentioned about the tech plan, and I feel like I've seen like pieces of that maybe or heard pieces of that discussed. I was wondering if it would be possible to add like the complete tech plan in its whatever state it's in, if we could add that to the folder for this meeting or somewhere I can find it.
Yeah, let me Sandeep and I are meeting tomorrow. He's been the parent that has been talking to various teachers and working with Joanne, and to get his update and see if he could provide like a written update, and then we can always invite him. I would say come to an LSC meeting and give an update, but also at the budget meeting we could have him give an update, and then I could just have you guys watch the recording on your own time. But he's super jazzed and excited about it, and has really talked to the teachers that need the tech. So yes, I'd love to share it with you.
That's great. Sorry, I had one follow-up question about,
Yes.
I recognize with CPS, like taking on the load of the one-to-one, there's a lot of unknowns. I was wondering if there's a time frame that they've provided us at all for when we might get more information. No, I didn't think there would be, but I thought I'd ask because I know as a teacher of incoming ninth grade students, it's really kind of nice to know whether we're going to be able to do various activities. So
I'm going to have Dr. Pars respond, and then I think Roberto had his hand up.
And just real quickly on that, Ellen, following up, I mean, we do have a reserve of Chromebooks, ones that can still be issued and used. And with the changeover to the more centrally funded plan for that, we're going to be fine to start the school year, but we'd be finer, if there's such a word, if we knew right away. And there's going to be, once this happens, the demand for Chromebook orders is going to be gigantic. We're not actually going to be doing the orders. We're just supplying how many are needed and determining what the criteria are for the purchase and the replacement and everything else. Everything else is going to be ordered, centrally and, for want of a better term, in bulk.
Great. Roberto, did you have your hand up?
I did. So on this topic regarding the one-to-one, I'm wondering whether we are going to continue to have the $100 tech fee, or if we can reduce that down to $50 or $75. I think that was something that we had discussed during last year's budget, whether having it at 100 would build up our funds to be able to provide the one-to-one. But now that CPS is going to provide that, I wonder if we can reduce that cost on families to $50 or $75, or do you anticipate that there's going to be same level of cost of maintaining those devices or purchasing new technology?
Dr. Powers?
Good question, Roberto. And again, that's part of what we're working on. Ms. Troche definitely has this outline in terms of, for example, our incoming freshmen next year. We've got that covered already. And what we're going to be looking at is, as the computers age out and the replacement factors of certain, broken ones and so forth, we'll at least have that backup from central funding. With regard to the fee, I think we're a little premature. The topic is certainly worthy of discussion, but I think we're a little premature in terms of reducing it or eliminating it or anything like that until we really get a better lay of the land that we're talking about here, because there's a lot of other technology needs in the school that ultimately do serve all of our kids. For example, those computer science labs, every one of our kids goes through those computer science labs in the course of 4 years. So that fee may still need to be kept in place, but we have to look at the total picture of technology.
Yeah, and I think to Roberto's question that we can align that to the tech plan that Sandeep and Joanne have been working on.
And I just have one more question. So I just want to, I want to uplift the restorative justice program at Jones. So I've been talking to and coordinating with Mr. Feely and Ms. Lehagen. I'm sorry, Cynthia. So I know that it's been, at least from my understanding and in conversation with Mr. Feely, is that it's been a really successful program. The first cohort was trained in the spring of 2021. I think Daniel was part of that. And then the second cohort was trained this school year. Alexandra, I believe, is part of that cohort. So I think it's been a really positive experience. And I know they're moving from, they've been talking about peace circles, talk circles, and conflict circles. My understanding is that the third-party provider is alternatives. And I'm trying to understand, how are those, one, I think we should continue that. I think we should continue to strengthen that program. And then I'm trying to understand, how is that program funded? Is that funded through SBB, through internal accounts, through central? And if you have any ideas whether we will continue to have this program available for next year's students.
Dr. Powers?
Yes, another good question there, Roberto. Portions of, at least some of the initially, with the alternatives program have been centrally funded. In other words, there's minimal cost to the school. As we move forward, I'll have to consult with the other people involved in it. But whatever it is going to be, it's not designed to be it's not designed to be an expensive programming. It's very much human centered and not technology centered and so forth. So in other words, regardless of exactly how it's funded, it will continue to be funded and will continue to move forward with the restorative justice programming. Mr. Feely and Ms. Lee-Logan have been doing an outstanding job, and we're getting we're getting some real momentum now that we've been back in school, and things are, pretty much on a regular basis compared to last year and much of the year before. But yeah, have no fear in terms of the costs on that or the funding on that. It will be one way or the other. It will be taken care of.
Great, that's exciting. I'm really glad to hear about that. I know it's been at least a positive program for the Jones School community.
Okay, does anyone have any other questions? I think we're on the right track for 124 funds. We'll try to provide as much information as we can before we would have to get into those discussions. Ellen?
This is just a clarifying question. So I watched the budget meeting from Monday, and I really appreciated, Mr. Burney, how you broke down the 124 funds into their subcategories. So I just wanted to kind of get some clarification about the percentages, for example, for departments. Is that based off of this school year, just how that had been allocated?
Correct. So that's the approach. This is something, that's more realistic. What we did was take the numbers that were approved in last year's budget that the LSC voted upon, and we configured each category, for example, the departments, and then what chunk of the student fee did the departments get, which was roughly around 40%, broken down between, say, 15 different departments, so to speak, okay? And which department got X amount of dollars based on what was approved. We use those same figures just as a starting base. Again, not to say that's what it's going to be this year, but just as a starting point to say this is where we were based on what the departments have given us back to PPLC and everyone else that we talked about earlier. This is where our needs will be. If we're going one-to-one, the tech thing, do we need to decrease the tech fee? So that we can play with those percentages, but it is a absolute copy just of the percentages that we have already gone with for this FY22 school year.
Great, thank you. I had kind of a couple follow-up questions. I'm sorry, I have many questions. One of them was about the process, if it's needed to add an additional department. I know we have our capstone program, which is seminar, research, 2 courses, which are taught by members of 2 different departments. So it's kind of this unusual pocket department itself. So I think to this point, the teachers from have been getting funds from their other department, their primary department, in order to fund purchases for the capstone program. So I guess I'm wondering a little bit how we evaluate the need for an additional department, and I don't know how that works. And then I noticed that there are a couple departments that are listed there that are not academic course departments. So I was a little bit curious. I mean, we absolutely need funding for a yearbook, for athletics. I was just kind of wondering how they ended up in that same department space. And then I got, I think, a little bit confused about what the athletic funding is, how that is different from the transportation funding and the other spaces. Just got a little confused. So I don't know if that's clear enough to answer. I'm sorry.
So athletic fees are broken down, and again, there's so many things. Transportation is a big one, and also we have to pay certain referees and that are out of conference, blah, blah, blah. But there is a breakdown for athletics. And again, these are all percentages that can be reviewed again and modified based upon the needs of the school. There's, talk about streamlining the athletic fee in general, not having a discrepancy between JV versus or freshman, just having one flat fee across the board, which makes my job a lot easier. I'll tell you, it really would. But it's not about making it easier. It's about making sense and being fair. I hope I answered somewhat a piece of your question. I don't have the exact numbers, but each category is broken down. And I don't have it right in front of me, and I apologize because I'm multitasking here at home. But I promise you, Ms. Ma and I, we will nail this down and present you guys with something very comprehensive and hopefully an easy read. We don't want to complicate things and make things so financially technical where, we want everyone to really have a great understanding of what we're trying to do here and what the end goal is. And again, make this equation, this formula, as simple as possible.
Daniel?
Yeah, I'm sorry if it went over my head, but Ms. Marinsek brought up a really good point I liked about the potential department for the capstone program and like what the process is for maybe setting up another department. Just because I know the capstone program is a lot of students are in it, and sometimes the students need funding or stuff for projects that come up and stuff like that. And so just having like a budget for them would be really useful.
Yeah, I mean, I'm taking notes. So I don't know. Yeah, maybe that's a PPLC question too, is like who is in capstone, how many teachers? Mr. Bernie, you're unmuted.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just want to, again, not to beat a dead horse here, but I want everyone to, to really have an understanding of we're going to be asking for everyone's input, and it's going to be everyone's going to throw the kitchen sink at us, and be mindful of that. There are going to be things that are maybe long-term, things that we can't really do right now. And we will have to prioritize what we're able to do really with the resources that we have. Things are not, again, until we have the revenue coming in, we can't really expand certain programs. So I don't want us to get so excited and everyone's throwing, oh, we want this, we want that. And it's not very realistic. We will have to make as a team, as an LSC, as an administration, tough decisions. And when I say tough decisions, just prioritizing these decisions on who and what is a priority at the time. And sometimes those decisions can be tough.
William?
Yeah, I just wanted to echo Daniel's sentiment. Again, Mr. Bernie was just talking about prioritizing. I think the capstone program is absolutely something we should prioritize funding to if possible. It is I am not in the program myself. My brother is. I have a lot of friends who are, and the projects that they produce are absolutely phenomenal every year. And I think Jones is much the better for being able to engage with that. And so I would suggest that we support that going forward. Again, that's something we'll review later, but I just wanted to express that I think that's a very important part of supporting creative and inquisitive students as Jones tries to.
Thank you. I think that there's a few ways that we could go by collecting information. I think Mr. Bernie and I need to meet first and just kind of see like what don't we know, and then obviously with the input of everyone after that, a good way to collect things centrally. I'm a big spreadsheet person, but it doesn't have to be that. It could be narrative also. And yeah, are there any other questions? I mean, I guess like the unanswered things are these, right? We don't know. We know that there's needs for tech, right? For replacing our technology. And Mr. Birdie's very good at like squeezing money out of what we have to pay for things that we need. So what can we fund this year, because her emails, the needs were immediate. So that's a question that needs to be done. Like any of this extra money we have has to be spent by June 30th. And by extra money, I mean OST, MFT money, SRO money, those three. The other unanswered thing is like this concept of funding the arts theater department, either doing a co-chair, and I don't know what that would look like, Dr. Powers, if that's another 0.2 position for that group. The space thing is an issue that I don't think we can answer tonight. I don't know if you had any, I know we just received that email. So
Sure.
Do you have any comments on that?
Just in terms of co-chairing, we already do that in a number of departments. So
I think she meant two chairs, not a co-chair. Is that correct, Ellen and Kim, or it's difficult?
I think we're just maintaining a unified department, but with somebody from either side, performing arts and visual arts, which is what we've done. We combined those two smaller departments into one department, and we have done that for a number of years. But again, in this particular year, we had one person sharing it who was on one side of the arts equation. And I think what Ms. Colby was recommending was we have two people co-chairing. But again, there's no cost involved in that. We do have, when we have co-chairs, one person attends LSC meetings and has a release period, and the other does not. That's normally what we've been able to do when we've had co-chairs for a department.
Oh, Ellen?
Yeah, I just skimmed that email in terms of like the time frame of arriving at the meeting, but I believe in the past, in the visual and performing arts departments, there have been like a member of the visual arts as well as a member of the performing arts were members of the ILT, I believe. I think that was the case 2 years ago when I did like numbers prior to the budget process last year. So I thought that that's what that was referring to. So again, it wouldn't correspond to additional funding, but it would be related to like when we're doing the programming, thinking about the number of courses that we have, like do we have enough sections, and also the ability to have that release period for a visual arts as well as a performing arts teacher. So I think that's probably exactly what Dr. Pars was saying, but in my own words.
Okay, so that clarifies it for me. So if I'd like to get any other questions out of the way. We will provide plenty of time to do feedback on the internal budgets once we get some more information to you all. And but otherwise, I think we are ready to make a motion to do two things. One is to approve the 10 extra students. And I know that CPS already said that we can have them, but I think as a formality, I think it would be important as the LSC to show that we approve these 10 students. And then a second motion potentially to approve the CPS centrally funded budget. Does that make sense? Roberto.
Yeah, so I just wanted to thank the budget committee to take this opportunity to thank y'all. I think this has been incredibly helpful. Thank you, Dr. Powers. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Mr. Burney. You have been incredibly helpful, responsive. I really do appreciate your willingness to share your experience, your expertise, and guidance in this. So this has been incredibly helpful for me to make an informed decision that would help the Jones School community. So thank you to the budget committee.
Dr. Powers?
I move that we approve the addition of 10 additional students on the projected enrollment. That would be from 1960 to 1970.
I second. Roberto Menjivar.
Okay, Menjivar second. Let me pull up my roll. Andrade. Oh, I'm sorry. Only non-students vote, correct? for the 10 seats. Thank you. Sorry. Bowman,
Yay.
Cresswell. Yeah.
I don't know, Sarah, on this. I mean, I guess it's.
Oh, on this because it's more of it's
Yeah.
it's,
I mean,
it's more of
yeah.
a solidarity thing, honestly, because technically CPS says only the chair has to say, but the chair is more comfortable having the LSC vote. So I'll have everyone in the LSC vote. Andrade.
Yay. Thank you.
Okay. I think I called Bowman already. Bowman? Okay. Clancy?
Yay.
Cresswell.
Yay.
I guess Troy never made it, right?
That's correct.
Okay, just want to make sure. Ms. Kerr left for prep. Land.
Yes.
Mana Hoppenworth.
Yes.
Ma is yes. Martin Sek.
Yes.
Menjivar.
Yes.
Powers.
Yes.
Zen.
Yes.
Okay. Anyone want to make the next motion?
I move approval of the 115 and the supplemental budgets provided by Chicago Public Schools for fiscal year 23.
I second it. Roberto Menjivar.
Okay. This is exciting. Sorry. Okay. And this is only everyone except students. Bowman,
Yay.
Cresswell,
Yay.
Land,
Yes.
Mana Hoppenworth.
Yes.
Ma, yes. Martin
Yes.
Sek.
That's cool. I got you.
Menjivar.
Yes.
Powers,
Yes.
Zen.
Yes.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So 9 votes. So we're good. And then, I wanted to give a shout out to the committee. They were fantastic to work with this year, and also just CBS for giving us those 3 positions. This would have been a lot more difficult conversation without that and that 0.5. So I know a lot of schools are not in this position that we're in right now. And so kind of reach out to the other LSCs that have gotten a lot of big budget cuts and they're having a really rough time. And I've been there and I've rejected budgets before. So I think that we are fortunate. Dr. Powers.
I just wanted to add in terms of not next steps for the budget, but next steps for next year. All this really depends on enrollment because it's still an SBB budgeting system. I'm very confident that the 10 additional that we receive up front, which provides for a little over $60,000 available for when we have to add, for example, fractional positions, that type of thing. But if we at the 20th day have more than 1,970 students, which is entirely possible, then we will receive additional funds in the fall. So it's definitely, I think we're playing this very cautiously, very conservatively, and asking for just a small amount in advance. I think it will be fully justified when the fall comes around.
Okay. I will turn this back to you, Ms. Cresswell, or Dr. Cresswell.
Thanks, Sarah. And yeah, definitely thank you to the committee. This is very smooth this year. And I feel like the discussion we've already had on the 124 funds is also very welcome. And I look forward to seeing the full process play out on that one. I don't think we have any other public participants who showed up here. So I think we are done for the evening. And so since we voted on this tonight, we don't need to have the meeting on the 4th. So we will see everyone on the 19th.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, so seeing no other business, I will adjourn.
Have a great weekend.
Thank you.
Have a good
Bye, y'all.
evening.
Good night, everybody.